So welcome to the Wordsmith Academy Q&A with screenwriter Brad Schreiber. Brad is joining us as a new instructor this year with Wordsmith, and it wasn't for a lack of trying. We tried to get him to join several other times, and it just didn't work until now. But we're super excited to have him join our other instructors here at the school. He's going to be teaching some amazing classes, which we'll talk about. As with our other Q&As, I'm going to ask some questions to Brad for the next little bit here, 20 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up to anybody else who has questions before we wrap it up for the evening. And this is just supposed to be a nice casual introduction to our instructor and who he is and what he's all about.
So that means that I can put my feet up on my desk.
It's that casual. You can take your pants off, shirt off. I mean, whatever you want to do, whatever makes you feel the most comfortable.
Every Tubin already tried that and it didn't work so well for him.
So. See, he's drinking wine. So it is that casual.
Yeah, I want everybody listening to me and watching this to partake.
Of course. All right. So first, thank you so much, Brad, for agreeing to Q&A with us here.
Sure.
We just want to get a bit of a better understanding about, or I want to let people know to get a better understanding of who you are and kind of where you started. So how did you actually start on this particular journey? Because your credits are extensive. You've worked in film, TV, journalism, theater, audio, like you've been all over the map. So you're kind of a jack of all trades, but where did the actual journey into this kind of entertainment industry start for you?
Jack of all trades, master of some.
Yeah, some.
I even once wrote a phone line, 976 phone line called Dial an Insult, where I wrote really crude jokes and some guy called the Insulting Sultan would do it over the phone line. You'd pay $1.99 a minute to be insulted. But you do what you have to. I started in high school. I was my editor of my newspaper in Burlingame High School, Northern California. And also headed the literary magazine, the first guy who ever did that. But everything changed in college. San Francisco State, I founded a couple of comedy groups. One was called the Burlingame Philharmonic Orchestra. Another was called Friends of the Ozone. And by taking control with these guys of our own destiny, we not only did our own writing and our own performing, but we worked in audio, we worked live stage, we did TV stuff in the Bay Area. We even designed our own costumes and sound. So the project of the comedy groups really was one that enabled us to really explore every aspect of performance. And it was after that I got more into theater. San Francisco Playwright Center, I was a co-founder of that. I worked with Sam Shepard at the Bay Area Playwrights Festival. Edward Albee gave me a residency grant. And so that was playwriting. So I covered comedy and playwriting. And then I moved down to Southern California, and it was books, and it was television, and then finally film. So I try when I teach people to think of it in a three-part manner. The writer, the creator, what does that person need to know? But then also I've been an executive. So what is it that we need to know about marketing our work? And also I've been a journalist. So the third part of it is, what will people criticizing your work say about it? What will they like or not like? So whenever I instruct people, I'm always conscious of being the writer, the executive, and the guy reviewing it.
And it's a great way to kind of look at it. I think probably the only way to look at it based on the amount of experience you've had. But did you have like a blueprint or a roadmap for where you were going within this? Or did you,
still don't have a roadmap.
Still don't. But then how did you meander all over the place in this work?
It's very easy. Actually, what I realized is that theater or comedy, it was really very rewarding because it was active and live and you got immediate response from people. But the written word is another way to enjoy being creative. And even though you don't get the immediate feedback, you have a world that's incredibly detailed when you're a writer of scripts or of books. And to be immersed in that and to see that hundreds of pages accomplished is a very special treat. And it's a completely different sense of satisfaction from, performing. Each discipline has its own rewards. That's what I found. And because I like to investigate them, I've tried many different things. And they all work in one way or another. Some are more remunerative and some are more exciting in terms of feedback that you get.
Do you favor one thing over another? Like, is there one aspect that you really love more than the other ones, or is it all pretty equal across the board?
No, the things that I gave up on are things that didn't pay me and drove me nuts. But in the end, I liked them. Nobody makes money doing radio comedy, but that's what I was doing. I was actually teaching at one point in the Bay Area a recording class for comedy with Carson Taylor, who was the chief engineer for Stan Freberg. And so if anybody investigates Stan Freberg in the United States of America, and he did incredible comedy with orchestras, he was really groundbreaking. But, a guy who writes a book or writes a screenplay maybe has a little better shot at making a living than a guy that does radio comedy. So that has to be a determinant, but there are different rewards for all of those things. And so too, Andrew, because, I met you in Las Vegas when we were both at the Las Vegas Writers Conference. You have to admit, it's wonderful when you teach people and you get that feedback and you see people getting the idea, the light bulb goes on and you're inspiring them to do that. That's an incredible feeling. In some ways, I think teaching is just as much fun as performing.
Oh, yeah. I always say that, I mean, as much as I title myself as an author, I spend more time and make more money talking about writing and storytelling than I ever have as an actual author than actually writing. So you're right, it is very rewarding to have that back and forth and that give and take with students and inspiring new generations and people who really want to get into this career. So the teaching thing is obviously something I've seen you do before, and it was great to watch you in Vegas. I forget what you talked about there. You did a keynote that was really, really good.
Yeah. Well, when I found out that you like Douglas Adams, I knew it. This guy is all right. I'm going to get to know him. I listened to Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy every single Thursday night, I think it was in San Francisco on the NPR affiliate. I would rush home and tape each one because I had never heard a mind and the BBC Radiophonic Workshop was so brilliant in the way they did his work. So I know that you love his work too. And I figured, this is a guy I should pal around with.
It makes sense. It makes sense. You ever listened to the original radio shows that they produced back in the day? Those things were in the 70s or 80s?
80s.
80s.
Yeah, in the 80s. Crazy.
So where do you get your inspiration from? I mean, what are, that's probably a really loaded question, seeing that you're multidisciplinary, but as far as your writing is concerned, where does most of your inspiration come from when you write?
Again, I'm not hedging, but it's all different. I've written stuff based on dreams. I've written stuff based on obsession with things. When I lived in the Bay Area, I followed what was happening with the Patty Hearst kidnapping. I actually met some of the people involved in that case. Lawyers and other people involved. And many years later, I wrote Revolution's End, which is the definitive story of the Patty Hearst case, but more importantly, how the Black convict who ran the SLA, Symbionese Liberation Army, was a paid informant for the police, and it was a false flag. And so no one ever really concentrated on that. So that was a case of being obsessed with something, true crime, and years later saying, documentaries about it and books about it. And I thought, hey, you're missing what I've really researched and proved, which is that it was a false flag. It was out to get the Black Panthers and the anti-Vietnam War movement. And, where is the CIA and the FBI and the LAPD and Ronald Reagan in this discussion? And I figured nobody's ever going to do it if I don't. So that was an obsession. I think it's really great for writers to have an incredible passion for whatever they write, because if they hit a wall, they won't give up. They'll say, I'm going to get to it. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get to the end, but I'm going to keep going because I love this so much. And I'm ready to spend the time with it. And hopefully you carry that over into producing or publishing your work. It is work, but you need passion. And also, when you have passion for the work that you're doing, you become someone who dazzles, someone who says, I'm doing even more than anyone else does in this genre, this domain. You shouldn't write something where you go, hey, I think this is going to make $1 million. I don't know how to do it, but, J.K. Rowling did it, or, whoever did it. So I'll just do a knockoff of this, It just doesn't work. You have to be passionate and you have to work hard. And that's where inspiration comes from.
So what you're saying is that I can't write a epic story about a boy wizard and it's going to be really successful. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, apparently you are very good at fantasy.
Offended, but yeah, not boy wizards though. I couldn't. That market has been crossed off the list at this point.
Well, that's fine. If you can write about goldfish and demons,
Yeah, then that's fine. I'm good.
Yeah. You don't want to write about a boy wizard anyway. It's already been done. And people say, hey, you're no J.K. Rowling. Well, I don't have to be. I'm Andrew. I have this other really wonderful idea. It's fantastical. And there's a market for YA that's proven. It's going to do better than doing obscure radio comedy like Brad did. And, you'll find your way. And there's nothing wrong with changing your emphasis as well.
It's true. And that's a good point. So where you are, we kind of covered kind of where you came from, but like where you are today. So what is it you actually do now? What would you say, like when people meet you, what do you introduce yourself as at this point?
I always tell them that I'm psychotically eclectic.
That's a good way to describe you.
Yes, I'm not proud. I'm psychotically eclectic. Well, look, for example, I just did a book with Ron Stallworth, who was the guy who wrote BlacKkKlansman. It was New York Times bestseller. Spike Lee's movie got an Oscar for the screenplay. So we have written a book that's about policing and race in America. And that's going to come out from Macmillan, hopefully by the end of the year. But also, I have a movie that's optioned, and we're hoping to start shooting later this spring. It's a Civil War thing. I was always obsessed. There you go again, obsession. I was always obsessed with the Civil War as a boy. I have 100 pages of a memoir that's been sitting around that I have to get to. I have many other ideas like you do, I think working writers always have a plethora of ideas. If somebody writes a book, first book, or a screenplay, the first screenplay, it doesn't get immediately done. The first thing to do, the two things to do is A, keep marketing, and B, work on the next project. The idea is that you have developed a stable of projects. And when you do, you find that you meet someone and you think, hey, this person is perfect for the project that I haven't done any work on in a couple of years, but is very appropriate. And that's the advantage of actually being prolific and accumulating projects, even if they haven't been done yet. Because inevitably you think, here's everything that I have, and I'm going to match it up with the appropriate person. Also, agents and producers like the fact that you have more than one thing. And if they work with you and there's some success, they gravitate toward you and say, hey, that was good. What else do you have? So
would you say in the scope of the industry today that it really is about the amount of, well, it's always been about quality, but is it also about the amount of content that you have? Like, there's no such thing as really a one singular hit wonder anymore. Like, you always have to have something else, it seems.
yeah, unless you write To Kill a Mockingbird or something.
She still sequelized it just before she died. She sequelized it.
Look how long it took to get the damn thing out. Unfortunately, apparently Harper didn't think that it was good enough to market. But, you know, if you really want to have a career, or even a part-time career as a writer, it's very good to be as prolific as possible, and explore different avenues. Find what you like the best. You might be good at a number of things, but if you are good at one thing, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, I mean, you're a good example of that. I mean, you've transposed your career from one thing to another, all kind of within a similar sphere, I guess I would say, but multidisciplinary. I mean, journalism, TV, film. It is interesting that you've angled your skill set into so many different areas.
Yeah, you know, Andrew, you gravitate away from things that either you're tired of, or they're just you're very good at them, but they're not working.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I still do journalism occasionally. I love to do arts journalism. I'm actually covering the Seattle Film Festival right now for medium.com. But that's something that I do for pleasure and to expose myself to really great work in film. But, you know, film projects, TV projects, book projects are the things that kind of pay the rent, along with consulting and, you know, through Wordsmith Academy, teaching as well. We've all missed that interaction from COVID being here. But I've got to tell you, anytime you can free up somebody and give them ideas as to how to do their craft, it's rewarding in a way that's unlike anything in the world. It really is marvelous. And not all writers are good teachers. I'm sure you've been through that, where you've been to a conference and you go, hey, so-and-so is a New York Times bestseller, and you go sit in the back of the room and they suck. They're really boring. They're monotonous. They have no insights. They're telling war stories. And you go, wow, this person, all right, well, keep writing if you want to, but you're not really helping the people in the room. Teaching, writing is a different skill from being a writer.
It's true. And so let's talk a little bit about that. You have a class coming up end of next week, which is 13 Things Bad Screenwriters Commonly Do. Can you tell me a little bit about that particular class?
13 things that bad screenwriters commonly do. This sounds really mean. No, it's fun. It's not mean. I'm telling you. It started because I was teaching at the American Film Institute in Hollywood. And I had great fun talking about formatting problems and problems that come in screenwriting that new writers often make. And then I got a book called What Are You Laughing At?, which was a humorous how-to book, on the first book on both script and prose comedy writing. And I took that idea of 13 things that I see all the time, and I put it in as a chapter. I should say, Andrew, parenthetically, that at one point here in LA, I was the director of development for a film director named Jonathan Kaplan. And I read maybe 1,000, 1,500 scripts. And I would see the same errors being made over and over again by newer writers. I'd actually see it by working screenwriters too. They would do things that were awful. But the new writers made more errors. And once you've had a movie made, this is the wonderful, optimistic truth. Once you have had a movie made and it's made a little bit of money, people go, well, we're reading the new script. It's really awful. What's wrong with us? You know, he made so-and-so money. She made a big success with that movie. Why is the script so bad? You know, not every author or screenwriter comes out of the block with a monster project. But the advantage of those who are produced is that because they have a reputation, people immediately think, huh, well, I really don't like this. It was so much better, that last one, but maybe there's something wrong with us. Whereas you can be the greatest screenwriter in the world, but your first script, everybody is going to take shots at it, even if it's really wonderful and better than most scripts. But getting in the door and getting that reputation changes everything, including saleability.
Interesting. So people who attend this particular class, kind of, what are they going to get out of it? What's going to be the takeaway specifically from it?
Well, we're going to have fun because there are going to be some examples of really bad screenwriting. And also I'm going to do some exercises where I ask them to create the worst possible cliches in screenwriting so that they will get away from doing that any longer. And those 13 examples are things that I see very often. Sometimes they're very avoidable, like, exterior or interior slug line. Saying too much is it's a problem that people have very often who are starting screenwriting. But then there are other things we're going to talk about that are really tough. The idea of Deus ex machina, God from the machine. When you close up a script in the third act and you have a resolution, and people look at the action of the event and say, where did this person come from? I don't believe that they came in to save the day, or they have a certain ability that you never showed me that they had in the previous movie or TV script. And that is a problem. And that is like laying groundwork in order to make the viewer believe that a certain character can either save the day or has the ability to change the action in the third act of a screenplay. And I'll be the first to admit, that's really hard. If you can conquer that, you can conquer a lot of what people complain about when they analyze screenplays and when they're thinking about whether they will or won't do yours.
Thank you, guys. We got to wrap it up because we're getting close to the time here. So thank you for attending. Brad, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this, Andrew.